Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bacon, I make plans for 7:45, and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Good evening, CFN, and all you CFNers, you wonderful CFNers, joining us here for yet another Monday. It is actually going to be our last show before Christmas. 23rd is next Monday. I just spoke to our panel, and it's going to be a busy time for everybody. So please sit back and enjoy what is most likely going to be our last episode before Christmas. We will definitely have an episode before New Year's just to recant everything that has gone on. We'll think back. We'll turn the clock back to January 2024, and then go from there and see what we have as takeaways. What are some of the most interesting things that happened to us in 2024, and just reflect back on the year that was. But I'll tell you, when it comes to Hardwater, everybody is really looking forward to getting back out to doing what we do best, which is fishing. And that transition right now, unfortunately, has us all kind of jonesing, if you will. And we're going to make it even worse, because we're going to be talking about some of the stuff that you might want to consider if you haven't got already, or perhaps just a discussion in general about some of the stuff that's out there and maybe new for 2024-2025 Hardwater season. So stay tuned for that. We are going to switch things up a little bit. Lawrence is going to go first because he has some news items that we're going to share with you. And then we'll say goodbye to Lawrence, and then we'll bring both Jay and Jim in. And that's when we will discuss everything Hardwater, from electronics all the way up to species-specific presentation. So it should be an interesting show. We look forward to you guys joining us tonight. As I said, it is going to be our last show before Christmas. So kind of cool. Hot Box Huts. We're really looking forward to some Hardwater, because we do have an announcement to make. If in fact we do get the Hardwater that we all deserve and are so looking forward to, finally a meet and greet on the Hardwater. So good evening to Hot Box Huts, and thanks for an opportunity to bring our community together. Steve Shaw's in the house. Happy Monday indeed, Steve. How you doing? Lloyd's with us. How you doing, Lloyd? Shane Richard is with us as well as James. Guys, thanks so much for this. Really, really appreciate this. How you doing, Ashley? Always a pleasure to have you. Richard's been busy sharing a whole bunch of stuff, and I did see all of it, Richard. I just haven't got to it all, but some really cool stuff, dude. So thanks so much for sharing all of that incredible content. Tony's in the house. How you doing, Tony? Thanks again for all the shares as well. Hopefully you win some of that stuff that you tagged me in, because I'll tell you, dude, I don't know where you find all those giveaways, but you are a hound dog for that. Donnie, nice to see you as well. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Corey, another stalwart, another staple in our CFN lives every Monday. You join us as you always do. Gary De Silva, thanks for joining us. Good evening, and of course, a Merry Christmas, and congratulations on your recent award. From everything that I have heard about you, because I don't know you all that well, it is well deserved. So congratulations, Gary, on that prestigious award. Erica's with us as well. Nice to see you, Erica. Eve, you're going to want to stay till the end. You're included in something. That's why I'm saying that. Trevor's in the house. How you doing, Trevor? Are you cutting pizzas, making pizzas, tossing pizzas, or are you out fishing? I bet you're out fishing. Yeah, I bet you are. Jeremy's in the house. How you doing, Jeremy? Sean, nice to see you. Never heard of her. How about Oops. Oof. Remember, it is a family show, Sean. James is in the house. How you doing, James? Nice of you to join us as well. As I said, this is our last episode until Christmas, and we will do our best to try and make it as informative as it has been all year. We look forward to the holiday season. We will have an episode before New Year's, so I look forward to that. Just to look back, as I said, on the year that was, and some of the things that we're going to be discussing, of course, is what's going to be upcoming in the new year. I'll just give a quick overview for those who have not joined us. Perhaps you have joined us, perhaps you don't know, but I do have a really kind of big announcement to make, both Mike and I, in the new year when it comes to the CFN Fish Off. Due to the great, generous folks at Shimano, we managed to give away Stratix last year. Kind of came out of nowhere, but we were blown away that the Stratix were being made available for you fish offers. All I can say is, as great as the Stratix were, and they truly were awesome, something better's coming. So stay tuned to that. That's all I can say. Put it this way: the Shimano folks have busted off the doors. They have, been over generous. So next year's CFN Fish Off is going to look pretty darn cool in terms of some of the prizes that are going to be made available to our community. So a big shout out, thank you to Lee and Bobble for making that happen. I still have to go through the list. It's so comprehensive. I got to go through the list to make sure that Mike has assigned all the prizes that are necessary. That's how complex it is. So stay tuned, man. I'm telling you, Shimano rules, to say the freaking least. Of course, with Richard here, looks like Canada Post might be resolving their issue to a certain degree. Hopefully the mail starts to get moving. If it doesn't, arrangements will be made so that if you have purchased either a hoodie or one of our hats for Christmas, first of all, thank you for doing so. We truly appreciate the support. But with the good folks at Canada Post, it looks like they might be going back to work. So it looks like the mail might start moving again. So we look forward to that. But if you are interested in any of the above noted merch, please reach out to Richard Dunlop for more. Obviously, would not be a CFN Live without announcing our CFN retreats and making sure everybody's aware of what's going on August 10th to the 16th. In 2025, we're going to be back up at Horwood Lake Lodge. We'd love to see you there for a week of incredible fishing, incredible food, and incredible fun. So please get a hold of Warren and Doris and make sure you get your butt booked in the bed. That's all the information you need, including the toll-free number as well as the email. Not to mention, of course, that's in August. Well, in September, we're going to be back up at Camp McIntosh. That is September 24th to the 28th. Looking forward to that. It's an extended period, hence the reason the increase in our fee, but still reasonable for an incredible week. And as I said, these fish that you see here have all been caught during the retreat. In fact, a good majority of them were caught last year. Kevin's, I think, was the only one that was caught the previous year. So, yeah, some decent fish. So if you want a chance at a Master Angler Award, or perhaps you're chasing your next PB, please reach out to Andre and Tracy at Camp McIntosh. There's all the information you need, including the webpage address and phone number. Reach out to them, and we look forward to seeing you folks there. As I said, I know there's still spots available, but they're closing up pretty quick. So do not delay. All right, I think that is all that I want to mention for now. So as I said, we're going to switch things up a little bit, and we are going to bring Lawrence up right after a word from his sponsor.
What is Flash Boost? Shimano designed innovative Flash Boost technology. It keeps flashing, which attracts fish whether in a pause or while retrieving. The mirror plate, which is fixed by a spring inside the body, vibrates with the lure action to generate diffuse reflection. Even if you stop the lure action, the inner plate will move and continue to flash. giving the lure a sense of life and inviting a fish bite. This is Flash Boost.
And this is Lawrence Gunther.
Without Flash Boost.
Without
I wish I had some, actually. A little bit of the hair, get the gray,
it's interesting that you say that, Lawrence, but needless to say, I'm sure some way, somehow, even though you are disabled when it comes to eyesight, somehow I believe that you can either feel it or see it.
Well, I imagine that Flash Boost, man. That sounds pretty sparkly.
It is. It is quite an upgrade in technology for Shimano when it comes to hard body baits. Something unique that perhaps a lot of folks have not seen before. I think when it comes to those type of hard baits, we've always seen a reflective piece of whatever in between, but it's stationary. Yeah. This has springs that allows it to vibrate, and it just makes it so much more lifelike. Those who have used them, have tried them, swear by them. So again,
and then you look at those Livingston lures that have a little battery in them, and then when the two hooks touch the water, it closes the circuit, and they start making little ticking sounds inside the bait, right? And
absolutely.
They've been around, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. I'm surprised. I thought it was a little gimmicky at first, but no, that company's just growing and growing and growing. I tell you, I'm sure Shimano's going to buy that lure company and merge the Flash Boost with the Livingston lure Auto Bowl, and then wow, what's next?
Who knows? You're 100% right, and that's the thing about the Canadian tackle industry is it's forever evolving. Although a lot of things stay the same, it's amazing how much changes. And this is part and parcel of what we're going to be talking about later with Jay and Jim in regards to the Hardwater season and what we might need to go out and get that we may not have thought of. Because let's face it, Lawrence, it's been 2, 3, maybe even longer since we've had what we would consider safe ice that we can enjoy some hardwater fishing. But needless to say, it looks like, fingers crossed.
Oh yeah. Look, at 2022, we had a good year in 2022. Lots of snow, maybe more snow than we wanted because it kind of insulated the ice from growing and thickening. But there was lots of ice, and I remember ice fishing the winter of 2022, fishing on the Ottawa River, and across the river comes this cow, and it's just walking across the river. Like, what the hell's going on with that? So my daughter went over there with the snowmobile to see if she could herd it back, but the cow chased her. So she ran off. And then another guy ice fishing nearby said, well, there's a slaughter facility over there on the other shore. So he called them and he said, are you guys missing the cow? And 15 minutes later, 2 ATVs come across the frozen Ottawa River. They come up to the cow. We think, oh, they're going to herd it back. Nope. They get off, pull a rifle, pow, drop the cow, chain it up behind the ATV, and drag it back to the slaughterhouse. There you go. There's a nice fishing adventure you'll never forget. But
you took all the words right out of my mouth, Erica. What?
Wow. My daughter and all her friends, they were having a 16th birthday party out there, right?
And they thought the entertainment was walking up the ice. Like that can you imagine seeing a cow?
Yeah. And it must have been a bull, I guess, maybe. I didn't get that close to it, but it was frisky. It was not happy, and it was chasing her. So I don't think they would have had much luck.
Getting chased by a cow on the ice. Place your bets. Like, can you imagine what the odds are on that?
Well, the Ottawa River was frozen all the way across. We were waiting for that cow to break through, right? We're thinking, okay, if the cow can make it across, then the ATVs came over, and then they dragged the whole thing back again. So there was lots of ice that winter.
Hamburger. James says hamburger on the hoof.
I'm thinking, man, if no one comes and gets that, we're keeping it.
Wow. Cow patty bingo. Eric said, was it playing cow patty bingo? Doesn't sound like it. It was probably blaming Lawrence for being stuck out on the ice.
Someone ratted it. It was almost home free, and someone ratted it out,
Oh, man. Too funny.
Yeah.
Well, Lawrence, as I said, it's not our last show of 2024, but we're getting close. This is the last show that we're going to have before Christmas. Mm-hmm. It has been an extensive year. We have shared a lot. We've learned a lot from your segments, and we are going to learn some more, because I do know that you do have some news items that you wanted to share. We wanted to put you first, obviously, because we're going to be talking ice fishing with Jay and Jim after. And of course, we do have a video that we're going to be sharing at the end, which will basically be CFN's way of saying Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And I want to thank Bruce Downs from Ugly Boys Baits for helping me put this together. And you'll understand why when you see the video. But
can't wait.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Anyway,
all right.
Lawrence, I have to say, it has been a pleasure to host you, listen to you, be a part of your segments. I have loved them from the day you've come on board with us, and you continued to pump out a whole whack of information. So without further ado, let's shut up, Scotty, and let Lawrence take it from here.
Man, you don't shut up. I need your feedback. If nothing else, just to read the comments, you know?
Amen. Amen.
So look, the news came out today, the latest issue of the Bluefish newsletter, with editorials, some podcast links, all the links to the fish and fish habitat news from across Canada, a little industry news in there. You want to sign up for that? Go to bluefishcanada.ca and sign up and get the newsletter direct to your mailbox. Otherwise, you have to hear me talk about the highlights, and then you're not going to get into the nitty gritty of it. But so this, it starts with an editorial on stewarding shorelines, right? How do we look after our shorelines, and what makes a good fishable shoreline, and how do boat wakes affect this? Now, this all came about because I listened to a whole bunch of young researchers relate their science that they've been conducting for the last couple summers. And a lot of it had to do with shorelines. A lot of it had to do with, the different impacts of shorelines, invasive species, removing weed growth by property owners, and even boat wakes. So I thought, well, it's interesting to hear what they studied. And then you listen to the studies and these young researchers, and you think, oh, well, man, they don't. I think, this is where local knowledge comes in. And I don't want to be critical, Scotty. I don't want to sound critical. But I know from talking to the senior advisors for these students, is some of them are lacking a little bit of fishing experience. Yeah, they're young, and maybe they grew up in cities, and maybe they never grew up fishing, but they have a love of fish and the aquatic habitat. But you as a boat owner, about boat wakes, and we all know about wake zones, and we all know about different types of boats, and what's annoying about certain boats, and what isn't, and how to manage your own boat wake, and we know even the regulations don't even make sense hardly when it comes to boat wakes, right? I mean, it's a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit, and we all know if you move along at 10 miles an hour in your fishing boat, you're pushing a lot of water up on the shore. That's the worst wake ever. So it's just a lot. It doesn't make any sense, but
it's actually interesting that you mentioned this, because one river in particular that I shake my head at all the time is the Otonabee. Yeah. Can't say that I would be able to address this in any other river, but Otonabee is one of those rivers where they have the poker race, so you got boats running up there between 80 and 100 miles an hour. Yeah. Then you've got regular recreational boaters, not to mention tournament anglers. So I sometimes wonder, like I remember when I was putting up there when I first went there, and I think I maybe had a 90 at the time. And of course I'm just putting along and everybody's just screaming by me. So like, I don't know, am I in the wrong? Like I'm that guy that's in the slow lane doing the speed limit. Am I in the wrong, or am I not keeping up the traffic, or what it is? But to your point, I think the laws are skewed only because we allow it to become skewed, because we don't follow the proper regulations. But I might be wrong.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, who came up with that 10-mile-an-hour no wake zone speed limit, right? And what research were they using to base that on? Like if you think about these wake boats at 10 miles an hour, I mean, they're only operating at 15, 20 miles an hour when they're pushing up those big wakes for the wakeboarders to ride on. I mean, they're not moving fast at all. So at 10 miles an hour, they're pushing up a big pile of wake, right? And at any speed. But a fishing boat at 5 miles an hour, trolling speed and below, it's very little wake. Then, between 5 and 15, before you hit plane, you're displacing a lot of water up until you get onto plane, and then you're not displacing water. I mean, the bass boat goes by at 80 miles an hour. It's just a ripple. It's just a ripple, right?
It's interesting that you say that, because Marco's brought up here, jet skis, have a tendency not necessarily to follow all of the rules. And I don't want to paint every jet skier as someone like that. But when you climb on the back of one of those jet skis, what's the last thing you want to do? You don't want to go slow. Mm-hmm. That's the whole reason people buy these darn things. Is
you're skipping along.
Marco, I totally understand that jet skis maybe need a more thorough talking to, so that they understand. But boaters, as Lawrence has just mentioned, can be just as bad.
And there's one thing. There's the noise issue. How fast a boat's going by. Close to your dock, your swimming area. Mm-hmm. That for sure. That's they cover that in the pleasure boat operator certificate. Tests. But I'm talking about shoreline erosion mainly, right? What's really eroding the shoreline? And it's not, it's all sorts of boats. And there's all sorts of shoreline strategies to prevent that. Which ones are healthy for fish? Which ones aren't? We all know fish and riprap shorelines, all those piled up rocks behind that cage creates, tons of habitat for small prey, right? They hide in those little crevices between the rocks. And the big predators know that. They learn that. And when they're hungry, they go up to those rock walls, and they cruise the rock walls and hunt for minnows. And we know that, so we throw our Sinkos and lures right up against those rock walls and hunt for the predators, right? So, 100%. They're different structures mean different types of fishing pressure and when to fish those structures and when to avoid them. But this is all local knowledge. This is all knowledge you gain from experience, not from doing science necessarily, right? You'd have to do a lot of science to figure all that stuff out. But this is an example where the people who spend time on the water, the people who understand what's going on, and then think, well, we can point you in the right directions, and we can tell you where you're wasting your time. But you got to talk to us so you can save yourself a lot of time. And we can help you sort of really pinpoint your research on the areas that make the most amount of sense.
Interesting to see too, and I'm pretty sure a lot of folks were kind of shocked if they didn't know that it was going to happen. But some of the Hardwater junkies, I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but those who are really jonesing to get on the Hardwater were unfortunately met by something that was a bit of a negative influence. Up in the upper part of Lake Couchiching, they are now starting to clear away a lot of the algae within, sort of the shipping channel, if you will, to allow more boat traffic. I guess there has been a concern with overgrowth. Just to see, these machines out, clearing the ice, because of course the folks wanted to get out on the Hardwater, and then they get to the ramp, and it's a channel that's like 9 feet long of open water, because these boats have gone out and they've been digging up all of the algae blooms and algae per se. But it's interesting to see that, because I'm sure it's kind of a shock to most who think like we do, that, when it comes to healthy fisheries, we need that kind of algae and that kind of growth. So to see it being cleaned out in such large quantities was a bit shocking.
Well, Lake Scugog, right? There's a lake where you see a lot of that. People, property owners, and trying to keep a path to their dock for the boat to travel through. We see it on the Ottawa River too, large stretches where shallow water, where you can't get within 100 feet of the shoreline because it's just pure weed growth. So there's healthy weed growth, and then there's excessive weed growth. But who's to say which is what, right? So, the fact is that in Ontario, you can rip out the weeds in front of your property. You can hire people to come in with all sorts of amazing combining, machinery that rips this stuff out by the roots and hauls it off. And it's incredibly destructive. And we know as anglers, the best shoreline is the natural shoreline, the ones with the trees lying in it and the lily pads and, weed growth right up to where it drops into deeper water. That's good fishing water, right?
100%.
And that's just, unfortunately, that's the water that cottage owners, personally take responsibility for cleaning up, right?
Exactly.
Putting mats down. And the big thing now is these underwater turbines, these fans. They put them in the water in front of their property, and at night they put the fan on to blow the weed out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and everything that's living there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. We've got so much to learn just about these shorelines, and I'm not talking about what's above the water. I'm talking what the stuff that is below the water, right? That starts at the edge and goes into the water. It's so much. Yeah.
Eric, good question. Why that certain timing? Based on what I was seeing, they needed, I guess, some ice in order to get some of the equipment out as far as they could. Or perhaps maybe they were just a little bit late. It's a great question, Eric. I'm not 100% sure, but I'd like to think it had something to do with the ice so that they had a little bit better mobility.
It could be due to when the fish are spawning and the weeds are holding small bait fish and small predator fish, minnows and so on. Maybe they're doing it that time of year where they would cause the least amount of ecological damage to the food chain.
100%. And really, like when you're stirring up that much of the bottom, by digging all that out, I'm not sure that anglers are going to really love the result. But again, we'll have to wait and see and just look for thicker ice further out in the big lake. But nonetheless, it was a bit of a downer for folks like Shane, who were hoping to get out on some hard water, and unfortunately were met by open water when it was not to be expected. But
let's move out west. I got some research here that just came in. It was related to catch and release Pacific salmon off the west coast. The recreational fishing community out there has been promoting catch and release with tagging the hatchery fish so you could selectively harvest the hatchery fish that have been put into the ocean and releasing the wild fish. And they said that way the wild fish get to go and spawn, and you're not impacting the DNA, and you're harvesting the hatchery fish out of there, so they don't necessarily mix in with the wild fish and pollute their DNA strains. But it turns out that according to this study, they tagged 1,500 Chinook salmon, and they did catch and release research on them. And they said between 15 and 20% of Chinook salmon that are released die within 10 days. And it's usually eye injuries, gill injuries, or fin injuries.
What was the number again? Lawrence?
Okay, so 1,500 salmon were tagged.
Yeah.
And they were caught and tagged and released. And between 15 and 20% died within 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're thinking maybe the whole catch and release thing with this Chinook, and they also predators also, but maybe the whole idea of catch and releasing, do that selective harvesting. Maybe we should just be harvesting.
Well, there's an argument. It's funny you should say that, because there's been an argument that has been brought forth by barotrauma that would suggest that might be the road to go. I know for a fact that CFN will continue to promote catch and release. We're doing so every Wednesday when it comes to the walleye that are released, and we're doing an egg count. And my hope is that 15 to 20% of them don't die, that we get 100% of them that live through the ice. I know that isn't necessarily realistic, but if we could potentially add up all of the potential eggs that were released this winter during the hardwater season, I think it'll be staggering to see how many millions of eggs we could potentially be releasing back into the fishery. And I will say this, for the sake of walleye, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to any other lover of any other species, but when it comes to walleye, I'm willing to take the gamble on releasing a big egg wagon, as they call them, and hopes that they live for the sake of maintaining the fishery, because I wouldn't want to gamble the other way.
And we know from research, it just takes a handful of the big ones, right? That the early spawners that lay the vast majority of the eggs and lay them ahead of everybody else. And those eggs, hatch, and the fry get big and strong in time for the next winter and make it through the next winter, and versus all the other eggs that hatch later in the season, those fry don't get to reach critical mass to survive the winter.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of loss. There's a lot of loss, but if enough make it through, it's fine. It's fine. It's nature. That seems to be works out okay. But I don't know, like catch and release bear trauma. I hear what you're saying about bear trauma for sure. That's and catch and release, like slot limits. Just trying to get those fish that you can harvest your 5 fish within a certain size. You might have to catch 50, 60 fish before you can get 5 that are in the slot that you need to harvest from.
Or you get a situation like the Spanish where it's tough to get a fish outside the slot. Well, I shouldn't say that. Basically what you're trying to do is target, as you said, with a slot limit, a certain size of fish. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of fish that you want to be able to take home. Mm-hmm. Well, the unfortunate thing is if you have a slot limit where if you catch a fish within that slot limit, you have to throw it back, then you're taking home the 2 extremes. Mm-hmm. Spanish is one of those extremes where, unless you love eating big walleye, it's difficult to find smaller fish. Again, very healthy fishery. Don't get me wrong. It's an incredibly healthy fishery, but unique in the sense that, typically you see a lot more smaller fish. Like take Lake Nipissing, for example. Tons of little walleye running around Lake Nipissing. The odd big one, where it's the reverse at Spanish, where you get nothing but big fish and there's very few small ones. But so an argument could be made that perhaps maybe that fishery needs a little bit more catch and release of the smaller fish. I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're seeing the way we can sort of tilt the table a little bit. When we're doing these types of management practices, right? It just shows you the fishing pressure and the catch and release and selective harvesting, how it can tilt the numbers in certain directions over a short period of time. So we know we have to really micromanage this, don't we? We have to figure out how to micromanage it just right so that the population stay healthy. And I think there's going to be more advice and more guidance on this coming over the years. I'm not saying that we should keep all the fish, keep everything, and then when you got your limit, you have to stop fishing. But we're going to find that we're going to keep fine-tuning these processes and these sustainability type methods of fishing. It's not done by a long shot.
No, 100%. One question that Mark is asking, and I might, if we don't know the answer, because it's a good question. Lawrence, any word on the MNR's proposed regs to allow anglers to take pictures of catch-release fish that are out of the slot size? This change is supposed to take effect January 1st, 2025. Do you have any insight?
I haven't seen anything. I haven't read anything on that. And, it could just be, one of those things that people say, well, let's, I know we got to deal with that, but there's more important things to deal with. And maybe some people are saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I know it's hard to get good shots of fish when you're just releasing them beside the boat. Right? When you're holding them beside the boat, they're in the water, you're resuscitating them, you're unhooking them, they're in the net. You don't get a real feel of the size of the fish or you don't ever get to see the actual fish in its entirety.
Yeah.
So, and just leaning over the side of the boat, and it's not easy to do, right? And people want to have that. They want to lift the fish up and show it. They want to show the fish.
Especially when you're by yourself, and it's something that we unfortunately have to deal with every year when we run the fish off. That we try to keep fish handling at the most critical and paramount of the focus that our anglers are having. It's great to go out and catch species of fish, but the handling is most important to us, because unfortunately, if we do get it wrong and we kill a rare or unique fish, then we're wearing that. None of us want to wear that.
No, and I think how this might come down is that if you're fishing on a body of water where there's a slot limit and the season's open, and it's a catch photograph release tournament, and you've got to let the big ones go, but you still want to get a picture of them on the bump board, right? Mm-hmm. So those laws have to be fine-tuned there, right? So that you can take that fish, put it on the bump board, take that picture, take that, the proof that you actually caught the fish and then released it. And so they have to make allowances for that. It's not the same as, catching fish out of the season, because that's different. When you're catching fish out of season, are you targeting those fish intentionally? Which is always the worry, and people think, well, oh no, I just, I caught it by mistake, the 14 big pike in a row and the pike season's not open now, but who's to know, So I think, but then, you have to, it's like, can you catch a muskie out of season and hold it up and take a picture of it? And here on the Ottawa River, they have to be over 54 inches to keep a muskie. So technically, if you're taking a picture of a 53, you're breaking the law, right? Technically, You're breaking the law. So there's some very clear nuances there. Again, more nuances that need to be hammered out, right? So people aren't worried about breaking the rules.
Yeah, it's true. It would be interesting to see if we get to a time where, the weight of a fish or the length of a fish is no longer important when it comes to posting on social media or just our own personal goals and personal bests. At the end of the day, we might get to a point, who knows, way off in the future, where all fish have to be released. Who knows? Who knows where this is going to go? I certainly hope not, for the sake of all of the anglers still yet to come, because I'd like to think that we've done our part to make sure and ensure the health of our fisheries, so that they're there for generations to come. But can you imagine a time in which all fish have to be released?
I can't imagine that. It goes against the fundamentals of why we fish.
Exactly.
It's like you go hunting with what? A paintball gun? It just makes no sense.
An interesting analogy. Yes, it's really. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurry you by any means, but I know you have some
go.
other news items, so I'll say let's keep her going.
Yeah. So here's something going on in the States. This is put on by Wildlife Forever. Has come up with this catch, kiss, and cook, a new hashtag. They want you to apply this hashtag to catching invasive carp. Not, hopefully not in the Great Lakes, but all down through those rivers, the Mississippi and all the other rivers where there's so much of it. They want you to catch one, take a picture of it, and then share the recipe. Like get it, show yourself cleaning it and putting it in the pan and cooking it up. Catch, kiss, and cook. Right? This is the thing. Not release it, not just kill it and waste it and throw it back, but to actually harvest it. And this is an invasive species management strategy. Catch, kiss, and cook.
And they've done it before. I know with I want to say it's either the lionfish. It's a spiny fish, very colorful. Almost doesn't look like a fish. It almost looks like something you'd see hanging from a tree at Halloween. But it's got lots of poisonous thorns. If you step on it, you're going to have a bad time. And they're overrun down in Florida.
All through the Caribbean and into Florida. Yeah. And they're having cooking contests, and cooking.
They were having initiatives. In fact, I think we shared one of their initiatives on the show of trying to get folks to sort of divulge a recipe, something new, a new way to approach a similar thing, just using that lionfish. But so it has worked in the past for other species that were invasive. So who's to say it won't work for the carp?
Well, you know what? We shouldn't be thinking of trash. Fish is trash, even if they're invasive species or they're a threat. Let's make the most of it. Let's not waste it. It's a resource. Let's not waste it. Let's not treat it as garbage. It's food. It's food. As long as you get some recipes and figure it out. But apparently, it can be quite tasty. Speaking of tasty food, the government just invested $1.4 million into the Magdalen Islands out there in the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, right? This is part of Quebec, and they want to nurture and foster the commercial fishery out there and all around those little islands. So that's pretty cool. I love to fish around there, especially I'd like to go down there and catch some of those redfish. Those redfish have come back in a huge way. And there's a commercial fishery for them now. They get between 2 and 5 pounds, and it'd be fun. It'd be fun to
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Not the tomcod. That's another whole fish, But I'll be fishing for them in January, and out on the St. Lawrence River. But redfish, I want to try that too. So there's all sorts of fish, you can put on your bucket list that we just don't hear about, right?
It's interesting that because a video was shared, and I might be wrong, but again, because it is social media, so you can't take everything, for verbatim. But there was a video shared of a great white shark that had a seal in its mouth in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and they know they feed on sea lion, but they have no footage of it. This was the actual first footage taken where they saw a great white feeding on one of these I want to say sea lion, or perhaps
it's seal. They're just some of the seals. I think there's 3 or 4 or 5 major seal population. It's a species out there on the East Coast, and millions of seals. A friend of mine does shark research out there, and he's found all sorts of seals with just big bites out of them. Dead.
There you go.
Yeah, lots and lots.
So they know they feed on them. That's probably the biggest reasons they've come back in such large numbers out there. They actually have no footage to suggest that it's going on. But
it's going on. It's going on. And what's amazing is they'll just take a giant bite out of one seal and then just let it go. They're playing with it. Just for catching them, hunting them for fun almost.
Well, that's the orcas, the killer whales. What they do with the seals, almost. If they were a human, they'd be put in jail.
Yeah. And I've got an article in here. The orcas up on the west coast, up in the northern west coast, so the northern resident orcas. There's 400,000 or 500,000 of them, or 4,000 or 5,000 of them in that pod, and they're wearing salmon hats. Just for the fun of it. They have salmon, they put it on their heads, and they just swim around with these dead salmon on their heads. They're wearing them like toques.
Incredible.
Crazy fish, eh? Crazy orcas.
So crazy. But that's interesting and good. It's good to hear. I love hearing that we're progressing, which is good.
Well, they said it's a sign that these orcas can chill a bit. They're not struggling. They're happy. They're happy. They're wearing their happy hats.
They literally are the smartest animal that swims in the ocean, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, amazing. And
they'll figure it out. I'm not worried about the orcas. They'll figure it out.
No, exactly. And they're such social. I mean, they really stick together, right? I mean, the male will stay with their mothers their entire lives. They stick with their mother. Never let her out of their sight.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, Corey, you are having quite a sea lion problem out there. He's out in the Oregon coast. Yeah, absolutely. There's a concern that they're starting to overpopulate. Maybe the great whites show up there at some point. I know the orcas will do everything in their power to chase them out of there, but who knows? Maybe we'll see a few great white sightings.
And these sea lions out there on the West Coast, they just hang around the fish ladders at the bottom of the dams because they know that's where it's the funnel, right? Where the salmon gather in the thickest, and that's the easiest pickings. So
we got time for one more, Lawrence.
All right. So the fish farming industry, they claiming, we used to say it take 5 pounds of fish feed to make 1 pound of salmon in an aquaculture sort of setting for the Atlantic salmon in the aquaculture industry, right? So they go out and catch all sorts of smaller fish. They grind them up into pellets and they feed them to the bigger fish. And it takes like 5 pounds of small fish to make 1 pound of growth in an Atlantic salmon. But then they said, no, we're getting way better at it. And they've been claiming this for years. They're getting better and looking at alternatives, soya and bugs and things like that. And it turns out that's not quite the case. Turns out it's been a lot of smoke and mirrors. And in fact, they are still catching a lot of very valuable smaller fish and feeding them to these Atlantic salmon. The problem is, adding to this problem is they're catching these smaller fish down around these more impoverished countries, right? Fish that are vital to the survival of people who live in these smaller, less, developed countries. They're going down there, vacuuming up their small fish along their shores and coasts, and then bringing them up and putting them into their fish processing plants to develop the pellets to feed to the Atlantic salmon in the cages. so that we get to eat.
That's interesting, and it's a shame that I'm not a salmon, because I'll tell you, you wouldn't need to feed me 5 pounds of feed for me to put on a pound. I look at food and I gain weight, so it's a shame I don't have fins.
It's the age, man. Oh my goodness! We're gonna feed you to the salmon.
Exactly. Well, with my luck, I just come across the wrong side of a sea lion. That would be my luck, but it is what it is. Lawrence, as always, my friend, a wealth of information. We can't thank you enough for everything that you bring to our show and our community, and of course, what you do with Bluefish Canada and Bluefish Radio. Again, there's not a lot of folks out there doing what you are doing on this side of the border. So keep up the great work, and we're so glad to have you on our team.
Thanks, buddy. Always a pleasure. A real honor to have this opportunity to chat with you and share this stuff, man. Appreciate it.
Amen, brother. And I will say this, Merry Christmas, because we will see you before New Year, but Merry Christmas to the entire Gunther family. Hope you guys have a healthy and enjoyable holiday season.
Thanks, buddy. You too. You and yours.
All right. We got Big Jim and Jason coming up together right after a word from their sponsors. Take care, Lawrence.
Bye.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
When he was born, he tried to reel in the umbilical cord. Bass named him as their personal best. His power pole came with a stripper. Forward-facing sonar uses him to find fish. Chuck Norris is his co-angler. He is the most interesting fisherman in the world. Stay fishing, my friends.
And we have both of them on stage. Here we have Big Jim McLaughlin and, of course, the one and only Jason. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And as you have each and every Monday leading up to the end of the year, and I know it is almost the Christmas season. I'd like to say it's already there for some, but I look forward to sharing this last moment with you two before it actually is time for the big guy to come down the chimney. First and foremost, Jay, how you doing?
Good, man. It's been, I don't know. We don't have any cold weather yet. We've had cold weather, but not enough. But I'm going to say, like, things are looking kind of good right now. You know, like I know there's, and I know Jim's biggest pet peeve as well as mine is some of the guys who are pushing a little too hard too early in the season. But things are looking up. You know, there's been some folks out on the ice. Not just Northern Ontario and Northern Canada, some Southern Ontario. So, you know, we got some rain this week, a little mild temps, but things are kind of shaping up in the right direction. The long range forecast, it's not awesome for ice fishing, but it's definitely not terrible either. It's kind of right on the cusp. Some of the major centers I was looking tonight at dinner, I was looking at, like, you know, Aurelia, Belleville, you know, places like North Bay, Nipissing. If it doesn't have ice for New Year's, there'll be lakes in that area with ice for New Year's for sure. But it's shaping up, so it's looking great. What do you think, Jim?
Oh, I think it's true. I know. I noticed today that I saw four-wheeler on the ice behind the house out here. So, you know, but it's been frozen for a month. You know, we had a couple of nights at minus 15, 16. And when you start seeing pressure cracks in the ice, you know it's there, right? But it's so quiet back there that it just freezes. I heard it booming the other night. It was only like -13.
Yeah.
So that's where the cracks came from, but 600 yards away, it's still wide open, eh?
Yeah.
And the St. Lawrence, although some of the bays are frozen, it's just wide open. It just looks like summer.
Yeah.
It's wide open.
Incredible.
Well, yeah. John White's put that video up last week, or maybe Friday, about like Cooch froze right over, right? And once that happens, like, guys may not realize this. I don't want to get everyone's hopes up because you still got to be careful. But once a lake freezes over and it stays frozen over, the ice formation can happen fairly quickly if it's cold enough. And at -10 Celsius, if you get overnight lows of -10, you'll grow an inch a night almost. If it stays calm, no wind, no snow, like no snow or rain, -10 at night, and if the daytime highs stay below 0, you'll generate ice fairly quickly, even on a big lake. But once the wind blows, it can tear it up. So, and it looks like, some areas are seeing that right now. There's also some areas that have had a buttload of snow, lake effect snow, and that's not good either. So, yeah, like Mitch is saying in the back on the chat room, 6 inches of ice in Timmins. I believe it. I believe there's 6 inches. Like 6 inches is not a lot of ice. Like that's my preferred ice thickness. I'm not even a skinnier me doesn't like 3 and 4 inches. I never have. Like I kind of like 6 inches because what folks don't realize is that it can change so fast, especially on big bodies of water, right, Jim? Like it can go from 6 inches to 2 inches to no inches really fast. And now I don't like fishing with a spud because I hate always having to worry about it, but I always fish with one anyways, right? So
it's better than freezing to death, fall through the water.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yes. Yeah.
I had to bring up what's happening up in the upper part of the upper reaches of Kujiching, where they're starting to remove some of the algae. It was interesting to see it, and I'm going to assume that they're doing this time of year because they need that ice cover in order to mobilize whatever it is that they're doing. But just surprised to see it. I know that we're all about the greenery and the health of the lakes, but in this case, this is going to improve a whole bunch of things, which gets right back down to boat traffic and, of course, the ease of folks launching their boats at the ramps.
Yeah, I didn't even know they were doing that. I was listening to you guys chat about that. I had no idea. So
I didn't know they could.
So there are, like the thing about winter work is that wintertime, a lot of work will happen on the water because fish aren't spawning, right? The sensitive windows basically start in early March and they go right through till mid-July. And because most of our fish are spring spawners, there are some fall spawning trout, salmon. However, most of our fish are spring spawners. So a lot of companies will do work in the winter and they'll use ice to access these areas. Like they'll put like mats on top of the ice to spread out the weight of a machine and get right out on the ice. And a lot of contractors that I've dealt with through different jobs in my past, that they prefer working in the wintertime. Less mess, less mud. The ground's frozen, right? It actually is a great time of year to work. Yeah, it's not the most comfortable, but it is a good time of the year to get some of these jobs done. And so maybe that's why they're doing it, Scotty, is this time of year because they can access it with frozen ground and the frozen ice. So, yeah.
Exactly. All right, gentlemen, we're going to talk a little bit about Hardwater, something that I know you two have invested a lot of your spare time doing. I think to start off, we'll start with, I think, the most important, which is understanding what safe ice is, or at least what ice needs to be in order for us to consider it, worthy of being safe. And of course, this chart from Clam does it best. Our good buddy Big Jim is on it as well. I don't, again, think that he needs 12 to 15 inches of ice in order to mobilize himself out there. But needless to say, that's what we're looking at. 4 inches is the minimum. Now, I hate to say this because I don't want to bring stuff like this up, and I know people are jonesing to get out on the Hardwater But Jim and I have shared a few videos back and forth this past week of some folks that are taking chances. Let's just say that. And I'm part of a chat group where it's almost being challenged. The anglers themselves are almost challenging each other, and I removed myself simply because this is not the approach we need to be taking this time of year, or any time of year for that matter.
Yep.
All right. So with that having said, we will get right into our discussion, which of course is all about Hardwater. Jim, for someone that has evolved along with technology, you've seen it from the paper grass right up to what we have now, which is considered live scope. One of the most important pieces of electronic that you bring out on the ice, in your opinion, would be?
Depending on your money, a flasher.
So typically, this is something that Jim and Jay, I'd have to say that you also agree with. This is one of the most integral pieces of targeting fish.
All charged up.
Now, based on price point, is there a model that you two recommend that sort of speaks to all of the necessities that you need, like the zoom, like the autofocus, what have you? Is there a model, in your opinion, based on price point and what have you, that sort of is the best bang for your buck?
Well, I don't know. I started off, the first Vexlar I ever had was a Dave Gens Blue Box.
Yeah.
An FL8. And I caught tons of fish. And then they started adding all these other things to it. You're still catching fish. They add more things to them. You're still catching fish. So, I think it's what you do with what you get. You have to learn how to use it. Mm-hmm. And the whole deal. Like, I know guys that went out and they told me, I would never use one of those. It's the stupidest thing. And whatever, it just doesn't make any sense to use that when you ice fish. You can't tell. It's just a whole bunch of colors flashing and stuff like that. But once you learn to use it, it's dreamy. It's, you can't believe the way you can watch fish and everything else. And I've done that forever now. I got the brand new model this year sitting behind me here, but I hope I get to use it. But it's just that, there's so much stuff there that you don't have to have, but it's cool to have.
Yeah.
It's that type of thing. Like I was seriously considering putting some form of a live sonar on my boat next year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, well, 90% of the time now I fish out in the back here. You know what it is. There's not a big benefit to where I fish from having live sonar there. It wouldn't be a bit. It'd be a bit. I think there's always something. There's always a little something to extra. But like that day I had with you where we had a horrible day. Do you think a live sonar was going to make a difference that day?
Not a bit.
No.
I don't think if I rubbed a lamp and a genie popped out would have helped me anyway any better than what we had. But that's a great comparison chart. Jay, thanks for sharing that. And maybe what we should do, because maybe I did jump the gun because you posted a great link, some of the necessities that you need to bring along outside of electronics. Obviously, folks are going to have a phone, but do you bring a spud bar? I would have to say and argue absolutely. You'd be stupid not to take one out with you.
Yeah, so the one I use a lot, and there's a lot of great ones out there. I have a 2-piece one that has a large cotter pin in the middle that I could take apart. So it's 6 feet long, which is a little long for my sled, but I could take it apart, put it in my sled if I'm not going to use it.
Right.
I say not going to use it. If I've been out there and I've checked the ice and I'm in an area, I might just take it right apart, put it in my sled for safekeeping. I can pull it out later. And a good spud bar is one that's heavy and know how to use it. Meaning, in that video I put in the chat, and I think I post that video every year, the gentleman from Target Walleye, I forget his name now, he explains exactly how to use it. So I might be able to swing a spud bar harder than Trevor can. Okay, I got more weight, more strength in my arm, at least at this point in my life. I'm sure I'll get lapped at some point. But so when I jam that spud bar in the ice, I need to know how far that spud bar is going into the ice. And that can vary too based on type. Is it clear ice? Is it cloudy ice? How hard is that ice? Which sounds weird, but it does vary. but know what your spud bar can do. So I know that if I smack it once and I don't see water, and I smack it a second time, I don't see water, that's over 4 inches of ice. Guaranteed that's over 4 inches of ice. Even the hardest black ice is 4 inches on my 2 wax. If I throw it in once and I pull it out, and there's what's cool about the Eskimo spud bars, there's 2 little points on the end of the chisel. And if I pull that out and those 2 points and you start to see moisture or even water bubbling through, you go back the way you came. So that's about a little over 2 inches when I hit it hard enough. And so basically I take a step, I hit with the spud bar, and before I step there, I hit it with the spud bar and I walk, and it's tiring. Like, I know you go out on a place like Quinny, when I'm going, I might be walking out a kilometer, and it's a long way to go when you're whacking with a spud bar the whole way. But that's what you have to do. And there's been times where I have to turn back and I have to change direction of where I'm headed. And it's just because there are areas where there's current and the ice will be thinner in those areas. You have to be aware of that. But a spud bar is so important. And I think it's always good to, when you're going out, especially early ice, go with a friend, or at least tell someone where the heck you're going all the time. Go with a friend, be prepared. You know, so when Trevor and I go out, and I know the first time I took him to Quinny was about 4 years ago, guys. And you guys have been there. You know the risk on a big body water like that. And it's scary, especially when you take your own kid. Oh. And so now the ice was fine. We didn't go out as far as I probably normally would have. I was safer close to shore. We still went out to the first break. Like, you know, we went out to 30 feet. Like, we were still a quarter mile offshore. You know, I explained to him, you know, he had his own little sled. I had my sled. We're single file. I said, listen, in the sled, here's the throw rope. Here's where my phone is. Like, I explained, and he had a look of like, Dad, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? Like, I'm like, no, this is what's going to happen. Like, if Dad goes through, this is what's going to happen. And you need to understand what could happen. He's totally good about it now. Okay. I still would go first with him. Just, I don't think that will change until I'm probably an old man. But I'm telling you, like, we've never had to do the fire drill, but he's got the fire drill lecture every time we've gone out, especially on like Quinny or early ice. But it all comes to a good spud bar. I can't stress it enough. It can help you get out. You can use it as a brace to help you get out if you do go through. I've had that happen to me before. But a good spud bar, you don't need one for everyone if you're following the same trails in the same area. Like, I've had buddies who just send me out because when you're the biggest guy in the group, you get sent out first. Amen. That's what happened. So I can remember we were up around, we were on a Splake Lake near Dorset, and I was with 4 of my good buddies. We were first ice, and we went out, and my buddies were like, I thought they were behind me. And as soon as I started going, they like just stayed on shore. And I walked across the entire lake, spudding my way, because we wanted to go to another lake. And there was a skidoo trail back to it. As soon as I got across, they came out. But the whole time I was going, like, boys, I had my floater suit on, not just my striker suit, my old floater suit, spud bar. I had the picks ready. I had my sled, but I didn't have it. Like, I usually walk with my sled across my chest, like the rope. I had the rope like behind me so that if I could just let go of my sled and let it go as I went through. Like, I know some of these things I'm saying, I'm sure Heather's upstairs listening to me right now going, what an asshole. but honestly, that's what happens. And we all share that together. And I know that when we go off at night, like, Scotty, you guys know this. You go on Quinny, you stay for that night bite. Yep. And you might be a mile offshore. And you know, when you went out there, you don't want to deviate from where you came, right? So, like, if you don't have a phone, and you should have a phone, but a handheld GPS is really good, guys. Like, it's such a handy thing. Yeah, portable GPS. There you go. Right on, Corey. Exactly. So it's good to have that backup. I have my phone, but how many people drop their phones down the damn hole? A lot of people. So have a backup so you know how to get back, because I'm going to tell you, when you look back to shore and you're in the middle of Big Bay and there's just about 5 streetlights, Which street light did you come from, Scotty? Because did you remember what street light you came from? No. Now you're wandering. In simple geometry, Stephanie has a geometry test coming up. Simple geometry, if you're out at Trident Point and you start walking back, but if you're on a 10-degree angle, you're going to end up 500 meters away from where you started.
It's possible.
Like it can happen so fast. So a GPS is so important. Telling somebody where you are is so important.
Now, Jim, I will lean on you because this is probably back in and I was taught this as a very young person out on Lake Simcoe about they always face the doors to shore. And the reason is of course, when you get into those freak snowstorms, you put your back and you walk, left in front of the right or vice versa. And you always make sure you look behind you so that you're going in a straight line. I've had to do it once. I think I was in my early 20s, got cut on a simple whiteout condition, and we didn't exactly come to shore where we launched from, but we were pretty close. But the amount of effort and time that we took, to measure, to watch, to make sure we're going in a straight line, made all that time wasted, if you will, added up to be a positive thing in the end, because we ended up making it to shore where I could have 100% seen us walking around in circles had we not done that. So yeah, 100%.
Well, especially on bigger water like that, that's how something like that could happen.
Yeah.
It was probably about 15 years ago now. There was a guy on the big Rito fishing one night. And we're not talking about going a mile and a half offshore there. It doesn't happen. You know what I mean? So it's not big enough. But he went back and there was a tremendous wind that night. And we had a big fluffy snowfall. And he couldn't find his tracks. And he got off on an angle. He was on a four-wheeler. It ran out of gas. He was it had way too much drinking. Okay. And he went into Camp Marywood there, the little camp that the cancer kids and sick kids get to go to and that. And he broke a window, but they found him inside dead, froze to death. Jeez. And that's at the Big Rito.
Yeah.
So imagine you're out on some place like Simcoe or Nipissing and you walk a mile offshore. And when you see that snow blow across, it's blowing across. It's about 4 or 5 feet high. It doesn't take long to get rid of the tracks.
True enough.
And I think the big thing too is on that note, like the cold, your phone will shut down.
Yes.
Yep.
Like we're all on our phones, and if you drop that thing in the snow when you're out trying to pack up or whatever, and you go to pick it up, now it's cold. The only way you're going to get it started again is to warm it up, or you got to bring one of those little, one of these little, like a little power bank, which I always have, or my Lake Simcoe power box. The power bank I can fit in my pocket. So this is my emergency. That goes in the pocket, but that's always in the hut too. But when that phone goes down because it got wet or cold, now you're in a pickle if you don't know where you're going.
100%.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about electronics. We've touched on that, GPS, the importance of that, spud barring. Both you agree that when it comes to electronics, flashers probably one of the more important electronics to have. There are mapping features that are available on some units as well that some people might find very helpful. But when you want real time and you're looking for fish, I myself can't think of anything better than a flasher to find them.
Yeah, and having GPS too to use on the ice, Scotty. I still remember the spot on the Big Rito that I found with Dave Gens, and to this day I've never been able to find it.
Jeez.
And I have gone and looked and looked and looked. I have driven back and forth in the boat, but second or third last time I was at the Big Rito, I was alone. And I went out there, and I know roughly where it is. And I went back and forth. I had the track, and I crisscrossed back and forth. And do you think we could find it? There was a place where there was a cliff under the water. It went from 18 to 26.
Jeez.
And it was probably 20 yards long. It was just some kind of a heave-ho thing on the bottom in the rock.
Yeah.
Do you think I've managed to find that? And I've looked for it. There's no hints on the map of where it is. There's nothing to do, but it's out there. But if I had GPS,
boom. Now, speaking of something that has also evolved, and speaking about Dave Gens, when it comes to an ice hut, obviously traditionally they were built out of wood. Folks would make them look like little sheds. Sometimes they would make them so that they would fit in the back of pickups. I've seen actual pickups that had the floor cut out of them so that they could fish right through the floor. But the evolution and the technological advances when it comes to these huts is truly remarkable. And I will say this, being from now the older generation, do we not appreciate a good hut?
Oh, it was a huge game changer.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the insulated ones you've got now, and I'm not talking about big, the big ones, the pop-ups like clubs and things like that. You just get you just get an insulated clam and like a pop over, and it's insulated. If you're going to fish in the same place for a while, you'll be in your short sleeves and the heater on low.
Yeah. Now, Jim, do you prefer a 2-seater pop-up or 1-seater?
Well, the one I have now is one.
Okay.
In the back here, it's still sitting down in the shed. I was looking at it the other day, but I also, the first probably 10 years that I ice fished, when I was just gung ho, I dragged a clam Voyager around everywhere I went. It was a 2-seater, and then if I had someone with me, they could hop in, and I spent a lot of time teaching people how to use a flasher, and this is when we got into the whole bit with the light line and the little jigs, and stuff like that and all that. It's just it was so much fun helping so many people learn how to do that. Because when I started this, you got to remember, there was no ice fishing hadn't happened yet. It was still the wooden shed and the case of beer. And
it doesn't sound terrible.
Well, that's what my wife said to me one day. She said, "If you want to do that, why don't you just sit in the garage?" I take all the time to go to the ice, go in the garage, get a little heater, have a cooler. You can make sandwiches, the whole deal. Everything's all good. But then fishing changed. You became mobile because of this. You put it over your shoulder and away you went. And like Shane just mentioned about the temperatures. Well, one of the nice things about them is too, on a spring day, you often heard me talk about the days when I came home from the sportsman show at the end of March. I would go to the Big Reno, and you'd put the pole in at the back that held it up, so it was just like a wall. It didn't have to flip over because it'd be beautiful. It'd be like 35 degrees, sun shining. You come home and you take off your glasses. Your face was bright red. You had a sunburn from being out on the ice. And plus, you're self-contained. All your stuff's in there. You fold it down. You put your auger on. You got your Vexilar in the bucket. Everything like that. I'd have another bucket with the rods in it, and then that became the bucket if I wanted to keep a few bluegills or something. That's what it would be. But it just made you mobile. You were self-contained. You could move, things like that. Like in fact, when I talked to Dave, I talked to him a little while ago here, and we get in talking about drilling holes, and like he said to me, he's the first thing I ever told people was that I drilled 100 holes some days. Because guys thought they had to do that to be successful. And you don't, especially with GPS now. You don't have to go and look. You don't have to drill a hole and try to judge where you are. Okay, well, geez, we've been in 13 feet for 10 holes now. Oh, 17, 8. Okay, here we are. We found what we were looking for. Now you just walk to it, drill a hole, and catch the fish. Or catch none and go to the next spot. But the thing is being mobile. That's what made the ice fisherman what it is. I mean, the stuff we have today, the clothing, the comfort that you fish in today, even if you're, even if you were to go out and not, and sit on a bucket, just the clothing they have today. I was just looking. I've got these ice armor mitts here, and I mean, like, these things are just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
The warmth on them, everything else, it's nuts. In the old days, you'd be out there, you'd be freezing.
Yeah.
Like you'd be holding the heater by the hot part just to get the heat, like to get tingling out of your hands because you'd be frozen all the time. Now you're sitting out there and you got a towel around your neck, wiping the sweat off your face.
So true. So true.
That's why they have to vent the huts, because they get hot, eh?
Yeah.
It's, well, plus because of the carbon monoxide too, eh?
Yeah, the heaters have definitely evolved as well. But the point that you make about CO is very important, that we don't get ourselves in a situation that it is a good idea to bring out a carbon monoxide detector with you when you're out, especially if you are ice fishing overnight. Now, talking about portable, we're going to go to the other extreme with Jay, and we do so, of course, by mentioning Randy's Taj Mahal of huts. His is very similar to that one. And
yeah, so
I'm starting to see a trend. These are really starting to become popular.
Yeah, so I'm with Jim. Like, I like the flip over style when I'm fishing alone. So if I'm solo, I like to just grab and go. So everything's like really organized. Like, I have a clam Kenai. It's not even thermal. Like with the friggin' Jim hit it exactly with the suit and stuff.
Yeah, mine's not thermal either. Yeah.
Like, I don't need the thermal. The thermal's nice because you don't get the sweat, the drip inside. But honestly, with the base layers and everything I'm wearing now, I don't need a thermal hut. But I will tell you that a couple years ago now, this is the 650 Eskimo, and I got no affiliation with any of these hut companies, but Eskimo is the first one to come out with the full size door. And about 3 years ago, we had a small Eskimo with a little angled door, and I still have it. And and these things I don't get, like, we're just hoarders, right? Like, we don't get rid of this stuff. So I will keep these things for people to use. But that little 3-man Eskimo was big enough for like Heather and I when the kids were like 4, not when they're like 14. So we got the 450 XD, which is one size smaller than this one you see here, but still big. And what I love about the 450 XD, that size of hut, is for Trevor and I, you know, you need 2 guys to put it up. Like, to be honest, like, it makes, like, I could do it by myself, but life is easier with a second buddy. But there's room for 2 guys in there, like, and lots of holes. And my hut, or my Smitty sled, which has all my gear in it, I have it wide enough that I could pull the sled into the hut, so it's behind me. So, like, all of our tackle, our rods, everything is in the hut, so it's not getting beat up outside in the snow and the rain or whatever's happening outside. So I love the pop up. They're pretty light, but they are a little tricky to put up. You just have to. You have to practice. It sounds funny, but you got to practice putting them up, because there's even in heavy wind. So what I like to use, Scotty, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is I like to use a K-drill. Yeah. And for augers. And one of the reasons why I picked a K-drill years ago was because you can get attachments for your drill to put the screws into your anchor those huts down. So the drill is like multi-purpose. It serves all needs. And I bought one of the first K drills when they came to Ontario, and I still have it. Like, it's running as, like, it's a drill. Like, there's nothing. I've changed the blades on it once.
But to your point, you know, the K drill has lots of advantages drilling holes, but also to do exactly as you said, to anchor.
Yeah, because it's a quick remove clutch. You just turn the clutch, take out the drill, put in the adapter for the screws, and then I go around, and basically, while Trevor's holding the hut still, I go around and pop in and I don't actually use the guy ropes, like the long ropes on the sides, unless it's really windy. Yeah. And then I only put them on the windward side just to keep the tent from, because otherwise, I will tell you, it will blow in on you, and it won't blow away. But now it will blow in on you, and you will get smacked around when that buckle comes in. So I'm going to warn people, put the ropes out when it's windy. But I could tell you a story. I was out with Dave Chong. We were on Simcoe on a nice day. We were fishing. It was like early March. It was beautiful, and it was windy though. Oh, was it windy? And I saw one of these huts making like tumbleweed, like heading for Couchiching, right? And it was blowing. It was heading offshore, like gone. And there was 3 or 4 ATVs chasing after it, like trying to catch it. I think they finally caught it. Trevor will know for sure if he's online. But
that's hilarious.
Trevor and I, now we didn't even use the hut that day because it was so nice. And with these suits now, you don't need the hut. The hut's kind of an option, to be honest. Like, so especially with like back to the suits, Scotty and Jim, you guys know this. Like, if I'm just going for the crappie bite after work for about 3 hours, I really got to think about bringing the hut. I can even if it's really cold, I can struggle through that for a couple hours, no problem. And it's not so much me being cold, it's when everything starts to freeze up, like your guides and I'm trying to do finesse presentations with 3-pound fluorocarbon and a 1/64 ounce tungsten jig with a maggot. And then my line, I got a wad of ice on my end of my rod that's the size of my fist. Like that's not effective. If I'm jigging walleye, it's different. But if you're trying to go for ultralight panfish, you need a hut just to shelter your gear from the elements, so you can actually see the bites happen, right? So
100%.
Yeah.
And some would consider putting up a big hut like that as sort of basically a main base, right? You'll have that's where you'll have your food, maybe a place to warm up. But that'll be your base camp, and then you'll do as you had suggested, Jim and Jay, about going around and sort of scouting the area to make sure that you're in the right place, and then maybe bring out the 1-man or 2-man portable unit. But
quite often, like we hardly even fish in the hut. The hut's just a warm-up spot. Like we'll fish around. We'll drill some holes in there, but we don't fish in there a whole lot. If the weather's nice, as long as not even that nice, just we want to look around, get out and explore a bit. And the hut just stays where it is. And a couple times a day, we'll go over and we'll pack it all up and we'll move. If the fishing's not that great, we'll fully move. But at the end of the day, those big huts. At first I was skeptical of just because they're big.
Yeah,
they're actually pretty easy to set up. But I recommend going with a friend. If you're going by yourself or you plan on fishing solo most of the day without a buddy, get yourself a 1-man pop-up. Like I think that is, you have to be a little more organized with your gear, and you can't bring the kitchen sink with you. I find you got to scale things down a bit more, but it is honestly the best to use a little flip over shelter if you can. And if you're on a machine, go as big as you can, big as you can afford. We talk about boats, buy what you can afford. Shelters, I think, are not an option. I think for ice anglers now, you should have it. And especially if you got kids, or if you want to introduce people to ice fishing and you don't want them to get scared of ice fishing, introduce them to a shelter. We're beyond the days of sitting on a frozen bucket.
Amen.
We're not there anymore, right?
Couldn't agree more. Great advice. One question I will ask both of you: when it comes to gloves, Jim, you showed those mittens that you have. I'm a lot like Erica. I'd like to be able to wear a glove that I could still have the sensitivity of the rod, which in most cases means I'm not wearing one at all.
Yeah, I won't wear I don't, because I always fish in a flip over.
Yeah.
I don't need gloves.
Yeah.
And I could not imagine, like I've tried fishing with gloves, and oh my Lord, I just have a real hard time doing that. A really hard time doing that. And I'm not talking just now. I'm talking like 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I had always had a hard time fishing with gloves. It just wasn't the same. And once you're in that hut, your level of efficiency goes up so much. It goes way up. So why dummy it up with with the gloves on? And that's like Jay mentioned about watching the line. It's the whole thing when you ice fish. It's even more so than open water fishing, because it's right there and it's below you. It's like feet away from you. So you have to really keep an eye on it. It's just like I can't stress the efficiency part of it more.
No, agreed.
If you're out there, you're cold, you're not having a good time, you're not gonna. In the beginning when I said to guys, I said, hey, I'll get you out ice fishing if you want to come out for the day, whatever. I don't think so. I never catch anything when I go. See, that's all changed now.
Yes. People
have learned now how to catch fish on the ice.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean drilling one hole and sitting in the hut all day, hoping a fish swims by. Do you take your boat out, drop the anchor over the side, and sit there all day? No.
Yeah.
Move around, you go. And it's the same thing, and that's what it does. That's why I'm not a big fan of the hub things and that. But for a family with a mom and dad and two or three kids or something, that's dreamy.
Yeah.
It's dreamy.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the species-specific aspect. We know what gear we're bringing in terms of electronics. We know we're bringing a spud bar, what gloves we're going to be wearing. I guess one last question. Do you wear a floater suit, either one of you, or do you prefer the bib and coat designs of, like, say, Striker or any other product for that?
Yeah, I've had both. I got into the bib and coat bit. I really liked it because you could slip off the jacket if it was hot inside. But I would not hesitate to wear a life jacket early in the year. I had people say, what the hell are you wearing a life jacket for? So if I fall through, they can find the body.
Amen.
Like it's that kind of a thing. It makes a huge difference. But then again, I was more apt to bring it with me when I fished alone. A lot of these little bluegill lakes that I found, you were alone. Let me tell you, you were alone. There was nobody coming to get you if anything happened. There was nobody coming to get you, and that's why you have to be careful.
Amen.
Yeah.
Jay, I noticed that you're sharing the K drill.
Yeah, so this is the one that we were talking about earlier, the K drill, and now the Clam has the clam plate for it as well, which honestly, it's the K drill as an auger, and there's a lot of great options out there. Eskimo has a similar style auger too, and some of these newer ones that are full electric augers, like you don't hear the pull start anymore on Lake Simcoe, right? When you wake up in the morning and you hear everyone
or the cursing.
Yeah,
exactly.
You don't hear that anymore. Like some of these, and I think if you're going to be out, if you're out a lot, if you spend a lot of time ice fishing, a good electric auger like the Ions, they're fantastic. For a lot of the areas where I fish, especially here in the south, we don't get, like, if we got 12 inches of ice, like there's going to be woolly mammoths walking around down here if we get 12 inches of ice. Like that is like the ice age. So, and I don't think we'll see a winter like that for a long time. So I'm usually only drilling through, 4 to 10 inches.
Yeah.
And the K drill fits that bill really well. Now, why I bring this picture up is mostly because don't just use any drill. Like go on these websites. K drill has a list of Milwaukee, DeWalt's, Ryobis that have the right specs. These brushless hammer drills. If you don't use one of those, you will burn out your drill. I promise you.
Amen.
Don't cheat. Get yourself a good drill.
Amen. Get
yourself a good battery. You need to have it. I believe the minimum is a 5 amp hour battery, which isn't cheap either. So I have two 8 amp hour batteries. I can get 100 holes with an 8-inch K drill in 6 to 8 inches of ice. That's it. Like that. I don't need more than 100 holes. I did it one day just to kind of see if I could do it, and I did it. And I used up that one battery. I've never gone through a battery. I always bring 2 batteries. You always need a backup, but that clam plate will help folks take the torque.
Yeah.
Like so, I'll tell you, one day just the K drill in the drill without the clam plate. Now Trevor was a little smaller. I saw it tossed him.
Yeah.
Because he didn't. I have the hammer drill with the side handle, right? But he didn't really have a grip on it, and it like flung him. And like I've heard of people like breaking their wrist or tearing tendons in their elbows. Like it's got a lot of torque to it, and so just be careful with them. And but the clam plate will help with that. But I find I don't use it a whole lot, the clam plate. But if I'm bringing friends, I bring the clam plate because I don't know what they're able to do. Does that make sense?
And it's true. And if there's any advice I can give anybody that's using a drill or at least some setup like this, let the auger do the work. I see this need for
pushing down on it.
Yes.
I see guys out there and they're leaning on it and everything else.
Yeah. Let the auger, let the drill do the work.
Yeah.
Because you'll burn out the head if you lean on it like Jim's saying.
Yeah.
And of course, it's a little bit different if the 3 of us are leaning on a drill and say Mike Console, but needless to say, it affects the ability for that drill, that tool.
Yeah, and it's if you're leaning on it, it's probably because the blades are bad.
Yeah.
And if you lean too much on it, you're going to wreck the blades anyway. So I would say if you're using a drill, you probably should change the battery because as the battery, lithium batteries will stay full for a long time, then they just drop, right? So when you're getting to that drop point, you lose a lot of that torque. You'll notice it right away. So just switch it out. Just switch to it. And Now, if you haven't kept your battery in a warm place, like I recommend keeping your battery in your shelter with heat. If you've kept it outside, you might want to change batteries and warm the other one up, because once you bring the one up to temperature that seemed to be dead, it might still have a lot of life left in it, because those lithiums don't do well in the real cold. But I will say that, you know, you guys are absolutely right. Like, do not lean on that drill. Just let it cut. Let it cut. Keep it straight up and down, and let it cut. Like, first time I used K-drill, man, I was kind of forcing it, I think, and I was cutting on friggin' angles. Like, that thing will cut on a 45 if I want it to. And I've actually done this for some camera work, guys. Like, if I want a cool shot with an underwater camera, I'll drill a hole on a 45 down to my main hole to run a camera down there. Like, it's a pretty cool tool, but there's some great ones out there, and it's all about price, whatever you can afford. I still have a couple old Finbore 3s here, guys, like the old offset, like that. I used them for years. The 6-inch Finbore was the best one, I felt, because you still move a lot of ice, but the 4.5-inch was too small for big perch and big crappie. But the 6-inch was fine for most game fish, but you had to go up to an 8. And but the 8-inch though, oh my God, you break in a sweat. Like, I used to buy new blades every year as a gift to myself at Christmas, because the sharper the blades, the better. But that offset Finbore was the best. To me, it was the best hand auger available at the time, right?
And they've lasted through time. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you'll still see them available now. Rapala has a bunch of them on that they make, and there's a bunch of others as well. But yeah, they have stuck around and probably will forever.
I see there's a question in the chat. Sonia's asking, do the fans on top of the buddy heater make a difference? They really do. They really do. So what I do for the buddy heater is I keep it up off the ice. And actually, I have a little collapsible stool, like a footstool. It's about, I don't know, it's about 8-10 inches high. It folds down flat, just goes in my sled. But I actually put the stool up, so then that heater is about 8 or 10 inches off the ice. Because if you have it right on the ice, you'll get a pool of water in front of it. But that fan will help move that air around, and especially if you're in a pop-up shelter with more room. If I'm just a flip over, I usually have the heater behind me, like in the tub. So, and then I have my vent open above it, so I don't have to worry about. I got usually good airflow in those little one-mans, but in the big one, because you can get crazy air temperature, like in the big shelter, like I can stand up in it and still have room above me to touch the roof, right? Mm-hmm. So you get crazy air stratification in there, where it's really hot and really cold. 100%. Those fans do help, but that's just one more thing to bring, though, right? We talk about ice fishing. Well, we want to bring it all, but good Lord, sometimes we bring too much.
Carry it. Yeah, you got to carry it.
yeah.
So, Jim, getting into species specific, we're going to start with your favorite species. Of course, anybody that knows Jim knows that he loves his bluegill. So, if you're getting ready to head out and you're going to be catching some sunfish, bluegill, red ear sunfish, whatever species of sunfish that you prefer, is there a specific type of bait, different specific type of setup that you would be gearing up? And if you could share just a little bit of your secrets.
Yeah, no, there's no secrets to it, man. It's like I'd have a 28 to 32 inch rod, lots of tip on it, really light, 3-pound test. What's the line I like today? Is it micro ice? No.
Yeah, it's a 3-pound micro ice. Yeah.
I settled on that years ago. I even used to use it, fish and panfish from shore in the spring. I just loved it. A lot of times now in the spring, I'll use. I've got on to using slightly heavier line, because I don't think you really need the light stuff like that. Like, I don't think you spend enough time with them examining it the way you do when you ice fish. Mm-hmm. It's a different deal out there, but that's all you need. 3-pound test, some little jigs, any of these types of little tidbits in here. Any kind of stuff like this, that's a little bit bigger than there. But one of my favorites is just some little tidbit like this. Little deals like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Little piece of plastic on the tail. And then there's the where'd it go? I think I got something here. Yeah. I discovered these little things. I think we talked about this before. And they are the coolest little thing. And like a little skirt.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Now they are called, the name's getting away from me. Got more here. I stocked up on. They're called silkies.
Silkies, thank you.
Silkies. I was I was thinking, I don't know, slippies or something else, but that's, and they come in different colors. But I used one of these last year in all my crappie fishing in the spring. And when I wasn't using the crankbait, I used that. And I still have the other one here still somewhere. I took it off the rod, but I only used one. I don't know what that little ball is that you stick the hook through there, but it's like wacky rigging. It's sort of like some kind of neoprene or something like that.
Yeah,
yeah, right. It's just an amazing thing, and they eat it. It folds up to nothing because it's just a little. When Gen told me about this, I was expecting to see a piece of plastic or some kind of a rubber skirt. I didn't realize that it was actually little strands of silk.
Yeah.
And when they get wet, they don't stay straight like that. They're just wiggling. They look like all these little tentacles and things, like all the zooplankton and all that stuff that's out there. It's really cool. But that's that type of stuff. And I spent a lot of time fishing with bluegills too. My search lure was always a little jig and wrap. That's a tikka minnow. Jeez. Like that. You can see how small they are.
100%.
You know what makes all these things really good is when you add magnets to them.
I was just going to ask you, do you add magnets to all of these?
I used to buy them 5,000 for the winter.
Yeah.
And the box stayed in the fridge, and that was the deal. It was the styrofoam box, and you go in and the odd one would die. You clean them up, keep them fresh, whatever else, that type of thing. And it would last me the whole winter. But I got that from Dave Gens, and it was one of the best things that I ever learned. I mean, when we used to fish down in Quinny for walleyes, we used waxworms on all the jigs. We didn't use a minnow head.
Yeah.
We used waxworms because they eat them. When they get near them, they eat them. They eat them every time. There's something about it.
100%.
You have to keep changing them, but it's like Gens just to talk about the juice. You got to give them the juice, and they liked it fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something about when you punctured them, they leaked forever. And
yeah.
I guess that gets in the water when a fish gets near it, he eats it. And it works on bluegills, crappies. I caught a couple of big channel cats in the Ottawa River once. Saw the one in XLR. Wow. With the little jig and wrap, the little weenie one, and had about half a dozen maggots on it. And I'm watching the distance close. Like the fish actually was sitting there, not moving, and the jig went down. And I watched the distance on the dial close because they smelled it. And no hesitation, they just swam up and just all in one motion. But that was how simple. And of course, I mean, I had this, the spoon box going, all that stuff too, and everything. But jigging wraps and the tikka minnows, these are really good. I like pinheads. That's those little. Oh, I've got a bigger one here I can show you. That's a pinhead. That's a bigger one. That's more like getting to be a walleye size.
Yeah, yeah.
They're really, really cool. A lot of fish come out with these, and I've caught so many fish with them. They're really good, and they've got really weeny little ones like that.
Wow.
Teeny little weeny ones, and they're just absolutely awesome. And there's times when you get out there, and you get something that's bigger. I mean, I was never a big guy through the ice. Like that would have been pushing it for me. Okay. Yeah. 2 inches, 2.5.
Yeah.
And, it's stuff that works. And I'm a firm believer that keeping it simple really helps.
Amen. Amen to that.
Like what is it they call that? The KISS rule.
Yep.
Like it's really true with ice fishing too. You don't have to lug as much stuff. I heard Jay say a couple of times there, he was, my God, you can't bring all this crap. You want to have it all. It's not like when you have a boat.
Yeah.
And you take out 20 plain old boxes at the end of the year, or 30. I remember times when the whole jacket in the middle of the boat would be filled with plain old boxes. Like they were literally like 3 or 4 stacks. There'd be like 30 of them in the boat. You had everything there that you needed, and it stayed there. But when you're ice fishing, that one little box, double-sided,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what these cost, about $10 or something. I guess they sort of got brought down from fly fishing box type thing, Except they just make them a little bit stronger. But yeah, no, it's pretty simple. You don't need you don't have to have anything fancy to ice fish. It's
No.
that's one of the nice things. But me from fishing with me too. You don't need anything fancy to fish in open water either.
No, that is.
And I
that
think
is true.
the simpler you keep it, the more
Amen.
fish you catch. Definitely the more fish you catch. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Jay, a great segue. Obviously, you can add to what Jim has said, but the next species I was going to bring up was, of course, crappie. A lot of similarities between it and a bluegill when it comes to targeting them through the ice. Anything else that you would add on top of what Jim has already said?
I think Jim really hit it well there. I think for crappies, like for bluegills, we're keeping things pretty small. Like a big bluegill, like that one there is probably 7.5 or 8 inches long, which is a good size one.
Mhm.
But rarely do you get one like a 9 inches big, and a 10 is a trophy, right?
Mhm.
Like that's kind of where the bar has been set. When you're talking crappie, they're a little more predatory. So they grow a little bigger, their average size, typically. The small ones, though, you got to sort of match the hatch to where you are. Like I go to some lakes where a 10-inch crappie is a giant. Like that's a big one. So you got to keep your baits downsized. And I pretty much use all the same baits for both, but for crappies, I'm not scared to go up a little bit in size, So, I still might use a little 1/64th ounce if they're real shy, but I might go up to like that 1/16th or that 1/8 ounce spoon, right? I think what's important too to mention to everyone is when you're ice fishing and I don't care whether it's for crappie or for bluegill or for perch or for walleye for that matter, I really enjoy, like, we're allowed 2 rods, so I do a 2-rod approach. Typically, I always have all my ice fishing rods are pretty much finesse. Like, let's be honest. Like, unless I'm going for lake trout or big walleye where I break up my 30-inch medium heavies, I'm using 26 to 32-inch light or ultralight rods for most of my fishing. And usually on one, I'm running 3-pound mono or fluorocarbon, depending on which rod I'm using. But that's that perfect sweet spot that Jim talked about. So a 2-pound test will help you with presentation, but you lock into a 14-inch crappie on 2-pound test, there'll be a lot of swearing at the hole. I'm gonna tell you that now because I've done it. 3 pounds is that sweet spot,
right?
Because 4 on a little tiny tungsten jig, 4 doesn't allow it to behave. You want to basically be natural as possible. And on 2, you'll get that. I've tried 1-pound test, and my heart's been broken. So 3 is that sweet spot. 4 is a little too heavy for crappie. We're just talking about crappie here. And then on my other rod, I'm usually running like 4-pound, like ice line, like Berkeley Fireline ice or something similar to that, where I'm using a bit of a heavier jig, usually a spoon, like the spoons that Jim showed you, or little rattle spoons. Glow, I love for crappies. I'm usually fishing at night or in the evening or early morning, so I love a glow. I'll bet you if you were to put a flashlight on my box of ice fishing stuff, over half are glowing.
Yeah, over
half have glow on them. Whether it's I love the clown, like the Wonder Bread is probably my favorite. But I'm gonna give you guys a secret: red or pink glow. Crappie love that. I don't know why they do, but they love red or pink. Really, really like that a lot. So that's kind of like, so it's just like bluegill, but I'll go up a little bit in my size because some of those crappie just are a little bigger and a little more aggressive. They can be.
Amen. That's awesome. Incredible information being shared here. Now, Jim, obviously there's one other panfish that is, as we've already mentioned, very popular through the ice. Probably one of the more popular species of fish to target through the ice is, of course, the perch.
Yep.
Anything on top of what you shared with bluegill and crappie? Would you add anything more?
Well, I think perch are more like crappies. You can catch them with bigger things.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of perch that I used to catch crankbaiting in places like Simcoe and Cooch, a 3.5-inch deep diving bait on 8-pound line. I got it down 18 feet in the water, and you come up with a 14-inch perch on it, and he's halfway up the lure. I mean, they definitely, I believe in my mind anyway, they tend to eat things a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when you're out there and you see it, it's amazing what they can jam in their mouth. I mean, we've all been walleye fishing with a 4-inch, minnow on the back of a jig and come in with just the lead sticking out of the mouth of a perch.
Yep.
These things can eat.
Mm-hmm.
They can eat, and when their mouth opens up, it's like a crappie. A crappie's got a monster-sized mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be huge, compared to a bluegill or something. And the number of times that I picked a chicken wrap or a rattle bait or something out of the roof of a crappie's mouth, like it was just line coming out the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think upsizing it a little bit. I don't think you have to worry about little weeny things so much. But it's like anything else, you've got those, like Jay said, about having 3 or 4 rods with them, some different things. You can change. You can just reel it up, put the rod down, and go back down. And another thing too, I was thinking of, just we were sitting here, I was listening to Jay talking. I was thinking, when you miss a bite, I always used to see guys, they miss a bite, they set the hook, they don't get them, they bring it up. Don't bring it up. Leave it there.
Yeah.
He wanted to eat it. He wanted to eat it. Leave it there. I said to a buddy of mine one day, he doesn't fish much. I had it behind the house. I think it was the first year I was here. And he set the hook just like a maniac. And I said to him, "What's that all about?" And he goes to reel it in. I said, "Leave it." He said, "I couldn't believe how hard that fish hit the lure." I said, "Don't leave it there. Leave it there." So he let it go back to the bottom. He shook it a couple of times and he caught a 9-pound pike.
Jeez.
That's why he felt the impact because pike, they move. But it just goes to show that fish wanted that.
Yeah.
If he would have reeled it in, he wouldn't have caught him.
That's right.
A number of times that I've set the hook with plastic and you think it's gone down the hook and it's not straight anymore. Well, do you think that the fish is sitting there going, "Oh, geez, that was plastic. Good thing I didn't eat that." He drills something and then it gets away from him, so he goes and eats it. How many of these underwater videos do you watch now of a fish, biting at something and it gets away and it goes 3 or 4 times and eventually gets it? Just leave it there and let the fish make the decision.
Amen.
Well, I'll tell you a story, same story that you're telling there, Jim, where I was out on Quinny with Trevor once. And if he's listening, he hates this story, but I'm going to tell it. Okay. So we're out fishing on Quinny. We're in our hut. You got 4 holes, 2 apiece. We each got jigging spoons down different, or I think I was running a blade bait and a jigging spoon. Doesn't matter. Fish comes in. So we're both running our flashers, right? And then Trevor's like, "I got one." So I can see on his flasher, the fish is red, and on mine, it's like green. So I know it's under his cone. So I'm like, "That's cool, man." I'm like, "Okay, Trevor, just get ready." So, you got to kind of coax him up, right? Sometimes you got to get him to chase. So he's coaxing, and it hits. He sets a hook, but sometimes you guys know you got to time that hit. Like, you just can't swing. You got to make sure it's on there. You got to kind of, and sometimes I'll actually stand up and set. Like, I got to chase all the way up. Fish comes off. He throws the rod down. He's all pissed off. What does that fish do? It comes right into my cone, and it's hot. Like, it's that red line is like a cobra in that cone, right? And I just start doing the same thing. Bam, got him, like a 4-pound walleye. And Trevor was it had to be the same fish. It was, so Jim, it got the taste of the meat and it wasn't done yet. Trevor, I think, just had it barely hooked and it came off. Because that's what happens sometimes with these fish on ice fishing. You got to have good hooks. Like, I change a lot of my hooks out, and you need sticky, sharp hooks because these rods are pretty light and you're using them on sometimes big fish. And so you want that hook to stick, but you're not going to we're not talking like jacking a swim jig in a 4-pound largemouth. Like, these are big walleye and you just got in the corner. So when you bring it up, you got to be ginger with that fish all the way to the hole. And one of the best things you can bring is someone who knows how to land a fish on the ice, someone who's not scared to get their arm wet and like not bang that fish against the side of the hole, because a lot of dreams have been broken with hooks in the side of an ice hole, right? So, but Jim's right though. Like sometimes you just have to stick with those fish, stick with them. Once you get them hot, they'll stay hot. Don't give up right away. Don't be disappointed, because you might get a second chance.
Amen. Now, we've talked a little bit about pike already, but to our friend Jeremy, who loves his pike, Jim, I will ask you to share some of what you have used or have found successful in the past when it comes to targeting pike.
Do a lot of ice fishing for pike. A lot of times when we did it, I employed big jigging wraps, the bigger sizes. Few spoons, like some of the Williams spoons and things like that, was what we used back then. But there's a myriad of stuff out there now. Like I say, like about the ice fishing industry growing up. There's so much stuff out there now that the amount of it. And I also, when I fished for pike, I fished a lot of quick strike rigs with live bait because I wasn't going to keep them, and I really enjoyed the whole quick strike rig deal, making them and getting it perfect and getting the right bait and there was some days when it really, really worked, where you really caught a lot of fish and it was fun. And I wasn't keeping them, so they're going back down the hole. So they're hooked in the mouth. That's the big thing, because pike, when they open that big yap and they suck something in, it can be in their throat awful fast. A quick strike rig very seldom would make it in. It's it gets stuck in the mouth on the way in.
Jay, anything more to add on pike?
No, pike is something for me that I rarely target. We catch a lot of them, but I don't want to target them. And usually if I land one, it's a good thing, because usually they just tear me off, because I'm usually going after perch or panfish. But we will bring a pike rod. Like Long Point Bay is a great example where there's great pike fishing. And there's just some days where the pike will cruise in and you can see them. Like usually when you're out there, it's so shallow and clear that you could sight fish them basically, right? So they'll come in and they'll hang around your hole. And usually in the sled, we'll have like a 30-inch medium heavy rod with a bigger hook. And usually if we buy minnows, for example, there'll be one big emerald shiner in the minnow bucket. And we're like, okay, if we get a pike, we're going to throw that one down. So we have fun with the pike. And honestly, sometimes the pikes are the one we keep to eat because they're tasty. Like people don't give pike enough credit. If you know how to clean a pike, they are darn delicious. And you get some quality meat on a pike, especially some days. Like I know at Long Point, perch fishing is what you're after, but I'm telling you, like the perch are pretty small some days. And I'd rather bring a couple big pike home and clean them up. You know, I'm not talking giant ones, but a nice like 24 to 26-inch pike you get a couple of those. That's going to feed the family really well, right?
Now, there's other toothy critters too that we can bring up, but typically we don't target muskie, and in a lot of cases, muskie are closed. They're an incidental catch. So at the end of the day, we're not going to discuss those kind of fish. We'll just discuss the fish that are predominantly the ones that are targeted. The one fish that I have not brought up, and I can have either one of you discuss it, is of course whitefish. That is another predominantly targeted fish through the ice. Anything in particular you would use, Jim, when it comes to whitefish?
Smaller stuff. I haven't done a lot of it, just a bit on Lake Simcoe and that.
Yeah. And
I think I've had a couple of really good days. It was almost like the fish all got together and said, "Hey, let's make him feel good today." and then most of the days it was like they told me, like, you remember the last time he was here?
Yeah.
He's out of here. You wouldn't even see one. Or you get a day where you get a whole bunch come in and you wouldn't even, like, I shouldn't even say come in. Your lure just happened to be where they were swimming by. They weren't coming to look at it because they never even turned their head. But Scotty, another fish that's really getting going is burbot.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Not only are they good to eat, it's going to be like anything else. They're going to get a beating.
Yeah,
it's going to change. I know guys that have lakes in the Rideau here, the Rideau area, have lakes to go to, and they can catch like sometimes 30, 40 of those in a night.
Is that right?
And they are aggressive.
I've heard that.
They are aggressive. Once they get going, so it happens right around dark with them too. It seems to be when they really get going. But wow, I've had some fun with them.
I wonder about burbot. I was gonna say I wonder about burbot too, because they're getting so popular. Like there's no limit on them, right? So, and they are pretty tasty. I've had them before, like freshwater lobster. You'll hear them referred to as. And I often worry about fish like that. That should we have a limit? Maybe we should. Like I know they're not like to some people they're not, really nice game fish, but you'd hate to see them just disappear because people are being a little silly with them, right? Like, they release well. They're a deep water fish. They can be handled. But they're becoming so popular. I wonder if, I'm sure it's being discussed again, I don't do regulation review, but I'm kind of curious where we're at because they've really hit so much popularity recently.
Amen. We have just a couple more minutes. As I said, I don't want to keep Jim or you, Jay, any longer than we need to, but there's a couple species still left. One in particular, of course, is trout, not specifically rainbow, but it could be rainbow, could be brown, but just the trout species in general. Typically, of course, if we're talking simple lake trout are the targeted species, but is there anything different, say, if you're fishing for pike, that you would change up for lake trout?
I think that lake trout are kind of a unique creature for ice fishing. I don't do a lot of lake trout fishing. I have, I think that they're just a larger bodied fish, and I think that honestly to target them well, you got to cover some ground for a lot of the lake trout lakes. They're a big lake fish. Even some of the bigger lakes, like in that sort of Halliburton, Minden area, that I'll target them. It's a lot of work, and they come and go. Because they're a large predator. They don't school up like other things we're talking about. Like even walleye will kind of come in waves. Lake trout are kind of roamers, and but they are fun to catch though. Like you get a big lake trout, no one's going to complain. But they take a little more effort, a little more planning. But you're in that category of you're using probably medium heavy rods, 30-inch rods. I think for a lot of large, like if I go to Quinny, for example, I'm using like medium heavy rods, 30 inches, probably 10-pound fire line is usually what I use in those situations. And I know some guys are probably like 10-pound fire line. Fire line is, as long as you're not rubbing it on the edge of the ice, it is strong and it's good and limp at that size. And then I just change I usually run a fluorocarbon leader. But for lake trout and big walleye, I'm probably running like a 10 or 12-pound fluorocarbon leader. To big jigging spoons, big tubes, big white tubes are very popular for lake trout. In fact, for burbot too. I know some of the guys up on Nipissing target them with glow tubes. A lot of the trout fishing that I do is actually on like small stocked lakes, guys. Like if you go to, I'm going to put it in the chat, that Fish Online app, right? Like it'll tell you all the lakes that are stocked in Ontario, who's stocking them, when they were stocked last, was it brook trout, was it splake, was it rainbow trout? A lot of the lakes are splake or brook trout in that sort of Minden, Halliburton, there's sort of that stretch north of the Kawarthas, but south of Algonquin, all through there, and further north too. That's a great place to start. And the secret to those is I fish for them like a lot of those small brook trout, same as panfish. Mm-hmm. But instead of using like white and pink and red, I kind of use like chrome or gold or like a blue and silver or blue and gold, red and gold, like something a little, they tend to like shinier things more, if that makes any sense. Yeah. But I up and down size based on what's in those lakes. Like I got some little Swedish pimples with half they're like blue on one side and chrome on the other. I'm pretty sure they're actually Heather's, but don't tell her. But like half the paint's missing on them. We've caught so many brook trout on them over the years, like stocked brook trout. And what's cool about stocked trout lakes is most of them are open year round. Mm-hmm. So if you want to go ice fish Like a lot of our natural lakes, you can't fish for lake trout until after January 1st, right? For most, and some of them aren't even open for ice fishing. So check your regs. But brook trout and splake lakes, a lot of those that are stocked are open year round if they're stocked lakes because they're designed to be put and take. Great opportunity to get out ice fishing for everybody. And a lot of the lakes are close to access points where you don't have to walk too far or drive too far to get to them. So those little trout lakes are key. And I just think it's still small baits, small presentations. A lot of the same rods that I was using for crappie and bluegill, I'd be using for brook trout.
Amen. Great advice. Last but not least, Jim, the beloved walleye. What are you gearing up? Obviously, you have your go-tos, which you typically always use, but what's your go-to when it comes to walleye?
32, 34, 36-inch rod, medium heavy. A lot of you can see right there, jig and wraps. That was my go-to. I think jig and wraps the best ice fishing lure that was ever invented.
Amen.
Period. There's nothing touches it. It's not because I used it more. The number of times that I started off with other stuff, and I would go back to that particular one, I did so well with. I did so well with that one. But any of those vertical ones that go around, blue and silver worked very, very well in the Bay of Quinte a long time ago. I'm not familiar now. I haven't fished it, recently enough to know if it still is the deal. But that low white with that chartreuse on the head worked, and I think that's the one that I had the red treble on the nose, sort of about bending the
Yes,
eye,
it is red. Yeah.
the eye hook in and putting a feathered treble on the nose.
Yeah.
You have to do it slowly though, because if you break the hook, it isn't any good anymore. So you spend 10 or 15 bucks on a lure and it's garbage, eh? But some spoons, I fished a lot of small glow red spoons. Really small stuff too, like an inch and 3/4, 2 inches, that type of stuff. Like a lot of times, I got that bit when Jay mentioned about red and pink. Dave Gans told me when he first introduced me, and we used to fish with the fat boys all the time with the maggots. He said to me, "Don't even have 2 of the other colors. Buy 10 red ones." That's it. He just said after all the years he spent and all the fishing he's done everywhere, the glow red was the color that caught fish. It was the deal, and it's not because it's what they used; it's what everybody caught more fish with.
Yeah,
It's that type of a thing. And when you talk about walleyes, they're I think even more so with them than a lot of fish. They can be different from body of water to body of water, or geographic areas, or you can break it down somehow. They are different, but place like most of the walleye fishing I did was on Quinte or the Ottawa River, and on the Ottawa River, you'd catch 30, 40 fish some days you'd catch 2, but in Quinte, you always caught 5, 6, 8. You'd have a big day, you get a dozen, but they were always bigger. And that was the whole thing why we went to Quinte. I've seen us go down there on days where we spent 2 days there and we only caught 5 fish, but they would have weighed 60 pounds or 40, 55, 60 pounds all put together. And that's the kind of thing that makes it exciting. And I'm willing to gamble my time and effort for a bunch of fish like that.
Yeah.
Amen. Jay, anything to add when it comes to walleye?
No, I think Jim hit it really well there. Like I think, when you're living, especially in Canada, like there's some walleye meccas, right? Like Bay of Quinte and then the Red River, Manitoba. Okay. These are destination places, and the only regret I really have for walleye, and I've caught some nice ones in my life, but not as many as Jim, I'm sure. But with Quinte, what I've learned is if you can go for like 3 days, because these fish, if you go for 1 day, it's a bit of a roll of the dice. Like it's such a destination place that if you want to put odds in your favor, you got to go for multiple days and explore some water. And because you go there on 1 day and you just start to figure something out, and then you got to go home.
Amen.
And I find that place is big enough, and the walleye there are awesome. Mm-hmm. That I would rather go there and I've done it when I had more time many years ago. Like I'd go for 3 days often, And I only go there for one trip in the winter. I'd go there for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And there was days where I didn't really even do, like, I can remember getting skunked Friday, Saturday, but Sunday we smashed them because we figured something out. There's a group of us usually, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're going to go to a destination place, try and make the most of your time there and figure something out. Work with your friends. As much as ice fishing is social, sometimes it is about catching the big one. And I'm torn. I'm usually either like, when I'm out ice fishing, I'm usually either like super focused or I'm barely fishing. Like I'm either one or the other because I'm hanging out.
Amen.
A good thing I'll tell you though from my Quinny experiences is don't just have cell phones, but have two-way radios to talk to your buddies in the huts. Yeah. Because when it's blowing and snowing outside and you just want to say, how's it going? What do you got? You don't have to text them. You can like literally just on a radio, just talk. And then everyone else can hear in your group. And then that makes the fishing more effective. That's a great thing to bring as a little cheap two-way radio.
Great.
Because that's put a lot of fish on the ice for me, is being able to talk to my buddies who are also trying to figure things out. You need time to figure out those bite windows, and it can take longer than a day.
Amen. Listen, gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. And I know, Jim, we've kept you here longer than perhaps we had hoped.
I'm missing my beauty sleep.
I was just going to say, I want to get you out of here. To the Barnucz family, to the McLaughlin family, I want to wish you guys a very, very Merry Christmas. We'll have
right back at you, buddy.
We'll see each other before the new year, but I want you guys to enjoy the holiday season and, of course, Christmas, because it is family time. So we're going to give you Monday off next week. And in the meantime, hopefully you can rest up and Jim, in your case, get 100% so that we're ready for 2025. But I can't thank you.
And you know, I always tell this to people at Christmas time, and I don't know whether I've ever done it here, but if anybody out there has somebody that's special to them, they haven't talked to them for a long time, like maybe 5 years, 2 years, you know, for a reason, something that happened. And, you know, people say, well, they haven't called me. Well, they're saying the same thing about you.
Yeah.
Take the time to make a call.
Amen.
Find somebody that you know you parted ways for whatever reason and do this. It'll make a difference in your life.
Amen. Good, great advice. Gentlemen, we will see you on the flip side. In the meantime, as I said, hope you guys both have a great Merry Christmas, and Santa's good to you. You guys.
Ho, ho, ho.
See you guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, guys. Everybody be safe.
Amen. As I said, lucky to have these two, as well as Lawrence, Yvonne as well, on the show. And, of course, all of our invited guests. We are wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, but I can't think of anything better to do that than to share a video. And I want to thank Bruce from Ugly Boys Baits for helping me put this together. Wishing all of you a Merry Christmas. Hopefully it is a healthy one. It is a safe one. And it is a prosperous one. We will see you before the new year. But until then, have yourselves a Merry Christmas.
So from all of us at OFC Nation, Cat Macintosh, Pow Castings, Ugly Boys Baits, Horwood Lake Lodge, and and of course our beloved CFN. Wishing all of you the happiest of holidays. And from my family to yours, wishing you all a Merry Christmas